What's going on, everybody? Ty Bartell, and with another edition of Coach's Corner. This time we go over to the Boardman community with their head boys basketball coach, Mr. Pat Birch. Always one of my favorites to get a chance to talk to you each and every season, Coach. How are the practices looking like for you and your guys?
So far, so good. We had tryouts over the weekend, and cut our roster down, kind of like our first official practice yesterday. So we're still sorting things out. It's early on, but so far, so good.
You want to talk about this season, but before we talk about this season, I want to kind of rewind it to last season because you guys, I thought you were gritty. I thought you guys learned a lot, but it was the first time in quite some time Boardman didn't see themselves on top of that conference. I know you, I know your boys. I can only feel like that's motivating your guys going into this season. Talk a little bit about how last season ended and how you're going to take away those takeaways from last year into this year.
Yeah, and last year was kind of a combination of things, right? Like we, had a lot of seniors graduate the year before, so we had a bunch of new faces. I thought we were close. We competed in conference every night. I never felt like we weren't in any of those games, but you got to the fourth quarter, and all of a sudden you find yourself down 6, 7, 8 points, and just weren't able to quite get over the hump. So we're trying to use that as motivation this year. The conference is tough, though. Fitch has a lot of guys back. Canfield has a strong nucleus. Coach Boardman does a great job, and then obviously Coach Franklin and Harding has some guys back, and I think it's wide open again, but we got an uphill challenge ahead of us too.
Let's talk about the schedule you've prepared yourself for this year, because the AAC, the one thing that is interesting about it, conference play doesn't start till January, so you guys have a whole month to kind of schedule out these non-conference games as you want. And your non-conference schedule, I'm looking in that month of December. There's a lot of fun matchups in there. Talk to me about some of the ones you're excited to test your boys against.
One of our biggest tests comes in game one. We get Uniontown Lake here, great program. They've been one of the best teams in the Federal League year after year, coached by Tom McBride. He's one of the best there is. So anytime you go up against a Fed team and a team like Lake, you find out about yourself very quickly. And that's kind of why we did that. We wanted to test ourselves early in the year and see where we're at. That'll be a nice measuring stick for us. Win or lose, it doesn't necessarily define anything, but it gives us a nice barometer of where we are at in early December. And then tough matchups with Poland, Mooney, East Liverpool. Talmadge was tough last year. They have some guys back. So it's a tough slate. I think it'll be a nice balance between some big schools, some really good coaches, and we'll know a lot about ourselves heading into conference play. That's the goal.
No doubt. And you want to expose yourself to a little bit of everything as well before that tournament time and conference play starts for sure. Well, we talk about the schedule. Let's talk about some of the players. You talked about practices, and I know there's a lot more practices to be done, and you got to thin out the roster a little bit more to get your finalized one. But what are some big names we can expect to see on that Spartans roster this year that are going to be lighting things up?
We have 6 returning lettermen, which is a nice nucleus to build around, along with, I'd say, about 6 or 7 other players that'll be in the mix. I feel comfortable with about 12, 13 guys right now. And through that, we got to get down to about 8 or 9. So there's a lot of competition there. Our 6th letterman back, senior Nico Holshoe, has been a 2-year letterman, started games as a sophomore, started a lot of last season. He's a guy that we rely on for experience and some playmaking. We need to see his production go up a little bit this year in terms of scoring and rebounding. But he's a guy that I think will be a steady presence for us throughout the year. Noah Ziak is another senior that came on towards the end of last year. And we always talk about Noah as being Mr. Consistent. He brings the same effort every day. You know exactly what you're going to get from him. He's in the right place at the right time. But same thing, we need his production to go up. He has to go from kind of being a role player last year as a junior to more production as a senior this year. And then other returning lettermen are Terrell McDowell as a junior. He led her last year as a sophomore. Caden Mayhew, Grayson Eicher, they're all juniors that played significant minutes as sophomores, and we need those guys to be players for us this year, and score the basketball and just make plays all over the floor. And senior Jeffrey Markovich is the other returning letterman who gives us some shooting and stability at the guard position. And then, like I said, there's 6 or 7 other guys that are going to be in the mix, and I wouldn't be surprised if 1 or 2 of those guys find their way into that starting lineup, and we'll see. I'm confident with a lot of those guys. Our other seniors, Willie Torres, Andrew Severco, have been in the program for a long time. They're tough kids. They bring some physicality to the program. Junior Zach Haas, who had a great football season, really established himself as a good athlete and a playmaker. over the summer for us. And I think his football season is going to carry over onto the hardwood. Ivan Rudiak, Sullivan Smith, they're guys that make plays with the ball in their hands. Vince Butto, Gabe Hamilton are a couple sophomores that are going to be fighting. Then Jace Farley as a freshman is a kid that could kind of flat out shoot the basketball. And if he's getting minutes at some point, I won't be surprised. So it's a big group, but our message to them is, hey, we got competition, and the guys are going to rise to the top that we want. So we'll see how it settles itself out over the next 4 weeks and beginning of the season.
Going from last season to this season too, and having 6 returning lettermen, I should say, from last season to this year, do you, as a coach and with the brand of Boardman basketball, do you kind of stay the course and just wait for the guys to get there talent-wise, or do you change some things up because they have a year under their belt now and you have some different things to go off of?
I think that'll be a question we try to get answered the first few weeks here, first couple weeks really. We got some scrimmages coming up. So by the time we get to Thanksgiving, I think we'll have a better clue of what our identity is going to be. I think we have some of the personnel to get up and press a little bit like we did in years past. We're deep at the guard position, so I don't worry about, guys in, guys out. I don't think there's going to be much of a drop-off. We're not very deep with size, so that's something we need to consider of getting guys in foul trouble. Do we have enough rim protection to get up and pressure? That'll be a question we need to answer. When we were really good at running and jumping and pressing, we had some guys behind us that could protect the paint. So how well we do that early on will dictate if we're able to do that in the season. Hopefully we could use our depth to our advantage and be able to get out and run a little bit and get the game up and down. But ultimately it's a half-court battle. No matter how good you are pressing in transition, you got to be able to execute in half court. So the guys that could do that the best, I think, will be the ones that separate themselves going into the season.
Give me a little bit of behind the coach's locker room door speak on this one too. When you talk about trying to get those guys for the roster finalized for the season, and obviously opportunities are going to come and go on the season. It's never set from game 1 to game 22. But when you talk about practices and the things you're looking for and how competitive all these boys are being, what are those kind of things you look for to get yourself good minutes with this team?
When it goes to the team itself, one of the things that we always talk about during tryouts and kind of leading up to it, call them like the 3 T's that we have, like your time, your talent, and your trust. That formula kind of goes into making the team. How much time have you put in? Are you invested in the program? Obviously your talent level's important. Can you play the game? And then do we trust you? And that trust is built by your time, by your talent, by doing the right things consistently. I like what Ryan Day talks about a lot about stacking days. Everyone can come and kind of have a good day. Can you have multiple days in a row of doing the right thing? And I think, like I mentioned, Noah Ziak, he was a kid last year as a junior that started probably towards the bottom of that rotation. He was a role player, and he stacked days over and over and over again. And we'd sit there and go, wow, Noah's having a good week. Noah had a good month. And by the end of the season, he was starting because he stacked a lot of days. So, as we're in November here, can you have multiple good practices in a row? And every day we as coaches go in, we evaluate practice, we watch film, who had a good day, who had a bad day. And, you want to be on that end of having multiple good days, and not kind of yo-yo back and forth. Because if you have a good session and then the next day you fall off, it's hard to build trust that way. And I think building trust is by doing it consistently over and over and over again. And those are the guys that will get the lion's share of the minutes.
I think you
stack them up.
You as a coach too have exemplified stacking days pretty well as well in terms of success and consistency in that program over the last 5+ years, I must say. But I know you don't do it by yourself. I know the staff around you is always a big helping hand too. I want to give you that opportunity to shout out your staff this year and who's going to be helping you out.
Yeah, I think we're fortunate. We have consistency within the program, especially at the varsity and JV levels, freshman level. Tom King is our varsity assistant. He's been with me now this will be his 4th season, but he was around our program a bunch before he came on staff. He did a lot of our skill work in the summer. He's a gym rat. His dad was a very successful coach at Western Reserve. He knows more basketball than, or he's forgotten more basketball than I think I know that old saying. Steve Flores his rules changed a little bit this year. He's still a varsity assistant, but he's going to head the JV program as well. He brings a ton of energy, a lot of experience. He's a Division I basketball player at YSU. knows the game and just knows what it takes to be successful at a high level. Dylan Basella is JV varsity assistant. He's been with me for a long time, former player of mine, along with Ryan McCune, who's coaching the freshman team. Those are guys that have been with me for a long time, former players, and that consistency, I think, really matters. They know what we want to get done, and the kids know them. They have a great relationship with our players. We have 5 really good guys in practice every day that are challenging our guys.
And that's all you can really ask for, I
Absolutely.
think. And I mean, and your guys are always asking for a challenge too. The boys are, it seems like, and they're always wanting to push themselves. I'm so excited to get a chance to see your boys play this year. I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit different from last year. A lot of guys are going to take a step up. Before I let you go though today, Coach, one of the themes I've been kind of asking all the coaches is the love of the game of basketball, where it started, because it's that love of the game that kind of brings us all together each and every season, whether we're in the press box, on the sidelines, on the floor. It's all the love of the game that connects us all. Do you have a pinpoint, a moment, or a time period where you remember falling in love with the game of basketball?
There's probably several. I go back to like my youth days. My dad was invested and involved. Youth basketball has radically changed. I have a fourth grader who is so far ahead of where I was in fourth grade because that's the landscape of basketball. We did travel last year in AAU in third grade, and they're doing press breakers and run and jump. And I'm like, man, like I was just learning how to play the game in third grade. But I go back to like my YMCA days. That was pretty much the only option when you were young, was to go down to the Y. And me and my dad always joke. We had a team when I was probably like third or fourth grade that was like the best YMCA team you've ever seen. Maurice Collette was on our team, and he was dominant. And it was, wow. Imagine Maurice Collette in fourth grade, right?
No doubt.
So we had some players, and I think that was like one of the moments like, man, I love this. This is fun. And then, I got invested into it and got better. And then in high school, I had a really, really good coach in Jeff Brink. And we won a lot. We were successful, and the atmosphere and environment, the culture that he had, I was hooked, hook, line, and sinker in the basketball. He gave me my break as a coach. I was still in college. I was finishing up my student teaching. He got hired at Hudson. One of his first calls, he's like, hey, Pat, you want to coach? I'm like, sure. Why not? I was like 23, 24 years old at the time, just finishing up college. I'm like, yeah, whatever you need. I was a freshman coach at Hudson. And the moment that I got hooked into coaching was my first game as a freshman coach. I was coaching Hudson. We're at Twinsburg playing freshman basketball. We're down like 12 points going into fourth quarter. We make a rally. We come back. We win by 2. And I was on cloud 9. Like the euphoria of coaching was like, man, that was every bit of a rush as it was playing, if not more, because I was happy for my guys. And I had a great group of kids that I got to coach for a couple of years at Hudson. And then I got hired at Boardman, and, kind of putting my time in ever since. So it's a steady thing. It's kind of like stacking those days, right? Like it's been years of, I could go back to second, third grade playing YMCA basketball, high school, learning how to win, learning what a culture is like. And then as a coach, it's been now, I think I'm going on year like 17 or 18 coaching, which is crazy to me. Year 12 at Boardman as the head coach, but I had 6 years prior to this. So it's a lot of different people, a lot of different guys that have contributed. Said my dad and Coach Brink are definitely my foundation pieces when it comes to playing basketball and coaching, though.
Well, you've created quite a foundation of success, consistency, and just a program in general over there in Boardman. Like I said, Coach, I'm so excited to see what your boys have to offer. We're going to cross paths, I feel, more than once this season, as I'm excited to see you guys in the gym. We're rooting for you here at YSN, as this has been a first edition of Coach's Corner with the Boardman boys basketball head coach, Mr. Pat Birch.